Do you think Russia's behind the sabotage of the pipelines?
Well, I think all the signs point to some type of sabotage. These pipelines are only in about 200 feet or so of water, and Russia does have an undersea capability that would easily lay explosive devices by those pipelines. I think this is clearly an act of sabotage of some sort, and Russia is certainly the most likely suspect.
Do you think the Russians did it? Asked the anchor. Do you think the man with 4 bullet holes in his head committed suicide? Oh, yes, says John Brennan. The Russians are certainly the most likely suspect. Well, of course they are. Did you ever doubt it? Once Putin got done electing Donald Trump president and then finished creating Hunter Biden's fake laptop and dropping it off at a Mac repair shop in Delaware, Putin set about sabotaging his own natural gas pipelines, which were his main source of foreign currency and leverage over Europe. That's how tricky Vladimir Putin is. Obviously, his next move will be nuking Moscow, all part of his diabolical plan to achieve world domination by destroying himself. That's effectively what John Brennan told CNN's viewers. Did they believe him? Sure they did. John Brennan used to run the CIA. He knows which lies work. He's an expert. Now, Tony Blinken, by contrast, is not an expert. He's a failed rock musician who somehow became the Secretary of State of the United States. He's, of course, happy to lie, does it a lot, but he's not especially good at it. At the beginning of last week, Blinken was pretending to be baffled by the sabotage of Nord Stream. No one benefits from this, he said. Not in a million years could he imagine who would do something like that. It was just unfathomable. That was Tuesday. By Friday, Blinken had dropped the pose and admitted that actually we did it. Now, Tony Blinken didn't use quite those words, but there was no mistaking what he meant. Watch.
It's a tremendous opportunity to once and for all remove the dependence on Russian energy, and thus to take away from Vladimir Putin the weaponization of energy as a means of advancing his imperial designs. That's very significant, and that offers tremendous strategic opportunity for the years to come.
Now, we don't have a super long attention span, but this was pretty compressed in the space of like 4 days. So last Tuesday, the largest act of industrial terrorism in our lifetimes was a baffling crime, said Tony Blinken. But by Friday, that same event had become, quote, a tremendous opportunity. In fact, a tremendous strategic opportunity for the years to come. It's a good thing. Now, that's an admission. That's the clearest admission we're ever going to get. No one could miss it, least of all the Russians. The Biden administration is responsible, either directly or through proxies, for the destruction of the Nord Stream pipelines and the environmental catastrophe and the economic collapse that will certainly follow. That is true. It's done. So the question is, where does that leave us? And that's the problem. This act leaves us, the United States, with no option but total war with Russia. There is no off-ramp now. There is no way out. We are all in, no matter what that means, no matter where it goes. Are you shocked by this? Was there a vote on this? Did someone ask your opinion? No. But it's been happening for months in slow motion. It's been hidden from public view by the near total blackout imposed by American media outlets. So you probably didn't know any of the details. For example, in March, the Turkish government tried to broker a peace in Ukraine, and they came very, very close. It wasn't reported widely. Ukraine was prepared to guarantee neutrality, meaning it would not join NATO. That's what the Russians wanted above all. And in return for that, the Russian government would withdraw its forces from Ukraine. And that might have been a neat solution. Certainly for the rest of us, the global economy wouldn't need to be destroyed. Nobody would die in a nuclear war. Negotiations to that point advanced to the stage that Vladimir Putin pledged to meet with Zelensky to sign a treaty treaty. And Zelensky was ready for it too. And we're quoting, "I'm ready for a dialogue," he announced. But sadly, Zelensky could not act alone. Despite what you may hear on NBC News, Zelensky is not the independent leader of a democratic nation. No, not even close. That is a fiction. Zelensky is a client of the Biden administration, which runs his country. And ideologues within the Biden administration did not want a negotiated peace in Ukraine. They wanted all along, and it's very clear now, a regime change war against Russia, period. So that's what they are now getting. On Friday, Zelensky announced that Ukraine is applying for full membership in NATO on an expedited basis. What would happen if Ukraine were to join NATO? Well, by definition, there would be an immediate world war in which we would be a major participant. Article 5 of the NATO Charter, the Mutual Defense Clause, guarantees that would happen. That's not an opinion, that is a fact. And everyone knows it. And yet, remarkably, Democrats in Congress cheered it on. And we're quoting, "Ukraine's fight is the reason we formed NATO in the first place," said mouth-breathing Congressman Mike Quigley of Illinois. "I think we need to support this." "Oh, yes, we do." Nancy Pelosi, peering through the fog of her own senility, agreed. "I would be for Ukraine having a security guarantee," she said. "Oh, no problem." And of course, because he has no choice, whatever you think of him, Zelensky, who is the puppet of the Democratic Party of the United States, read from the same script. On Friday, Zelensky said he will accept nothing less than the removal of Vladimir Putin as the president of Russia. Watch.
Ukraine was and remains the leader of negotiation efforts. It is our country that always proposed to Russia to agree on coexistence on equal, honest, dignified, and fair conditions. Clearly, with this Russian president, it is impossible. He does not know what dignity and honesty are. Therefore, we are ready for a dialogue with Russia, but with another president of Russia.
So that's the demand. Putin must be removed from office. Putin, of course, has no intention of leaving. You would have to take him out. Now, you don't have to like Vladimir Putin. You don't have to like anything about Vladimir Putin. You can hate Vladimir Putin, and most Americans do. But you can still understand how totally deranged talk like this is. It's the definition of reckless. Consider their own descriptions. For years, Democrats and the defense establishment they control have told us that Vladimir Putin is crazy and evil, and he may be. Let's assume it's true. They've said it. Is that the man you want to publicly threaten with extermination? This is the man who controls more than 6,000 nuclear warheads. So if you push him hard enough, why wouldn't he use those nuclear weapons? Well, by their own description of him, he would. We would have a nuclear war. But let's say, as a best-case scenario, you're able to kill Vladimir Putin before he could launch those 6,000-odd missiles against the United States or any other country. Where would that leave Russia, the country he controls? Russia is not Iraq. Russia represents an eighth of the world's total landmass. It is a huge country and a highly fractious country with a large and very restive Muslim population. So think this through just for 1 second. What are the chances that in the ensuing chaos, which we are forcing on Russia, in that chaos, what are the chances that one of those 6,200 nuclear weapons might wind up in the hands of someone who is truly crazy and dangerous to us and to the world? Well, let's see. What happened to Saddam Hussein's stockpiles of conventional weapons after American forces captured Saddam Hussein in Tikrit in December of 2003 and changed the regime there? Well, lots of Americans died and the country split apart. So multiply that outcome times infinity, and you understand what our leaders are proposing here and just how deranged they are. And they should know better because they've done this before. But they learned nothing. They were never held to account and they never learned. If you're not punished, you don't learn. And so they are ready to make the very same mistakes, but on an existential scale. And not just the wackos, not just the discredited ones like Toria Nuland or buffoons like our Secretary of State, the serious ones. Here's former CIA Director David Petraeus on ABC calmly explaining that if Russia launches nuclear weapons, no problem. We'll just eliminate their Black Sea fleet.
It can still get worse for Putin and for Russia. And even the use of tactical nuclear weapons on the battlefield won't change this at all. Jake Sullivan has publicly stated that the U.S. has communicated to Russia what would happen in response to that.
And what would happen?
Well, again, I have deliberately not talked to Jake about this.
Yeah.
I mean, just to give you a hypothetical, we would respond by leading a NATO, a collective effort that would take out every Russian conventional force that we can see and identify on the battlefield in Ukraine and also in Crimea and every ship in the Black Sea fleet.
So,
well, that's reassuring. So Russia launches nuclear weapons, we'll just sink their ships. Really, David Petraeus? You really think it'll end there? That would be the first use of a nuclear weapon in almost 80 years, since 1945. But you think you'd be able to contain the inevitable chain reaction with a conventional response. We'll just sink their ships. No problem. Apparently, David Petraeus does think that. And keep in mind, in Washington, David Petraeus is regarded as a genius. And by local standards, he certainly is. Suddenly, everyone in authority, everyone with a megaphone, everyone with actual power is thinking and talking just like David Petraeus. No problem. The Daily Beast, which is the tip sheet of the midwits who run our government, just had this piece today. Putin has left the world no other option but regime change. No mention of the inevitable consequences of regime change. A crazy person with nuclear weapons, and you're telling him in public you're going to kill him, and you're hoping for the best. And if he launches nuclear weapons, which apparently you have accepted as a possibility, let's take out his ships. We'll just sink his fleet and move on to the next naughty dictator. We'll show him. That's the depth of the analysis of the looming catastrophe that we're all facing. Last night on 60 Minutes, Scott Pelley, again, someone who's reported to be smart, who is respected, probably is, he had the opportunity to interview Zelensky's wife, who was a full-part parent in running that country. But there was no word about where this war could go, which is nuclear war. Instead, Scott Pelley used the opportunity to suck up, talk about how Ukrainian flag bumper stickers are everywhere in New York City, Mrs. Zelensky. Watch this. Are you strong?
Took this picture on the east side of Manhattan. What do you say to the American people?
And we apologize if you just threw up in your own mouth. That's 60 Minutes, the serious news show that gets to the heart of everything. Are you ever tired of being so brave and wonderful? That's the level of analysis we're getting, showing the wife of the president of Ukraine a bumper sticker with the Ukrainian flag on. We're on your side. We love you. We really do. This is true lunacy. An entire country ignoring, led by its leaders who specialize in ignoring the things that matter. Imminent catastrophe. That's not an overstatement. This is not the inflation rate ticking up 2 points or a loss of 15% on your 401k. This is nuclear war. And underneath it all, the people rolling the dice here understand exactly what's at stake, even if the American public has no idea. And we know that from a recent PSA from New York City that tells you what to do when the Russians actually do lob nukes into Midtown. Here it is.
So there's been a nuclear attack. Don't ask me how or why, just know that the big one has hit, okay? So what do? Step one, get inside fast. You, your friends, your family, get inside. Stay inside. Shut all doors and windows. Have a basement? Head there. If you were outside after the blast, get clean immediately. Remove and bag all outer clothing to keep radioactive dust or ash away from your body.
Oh yeah, keep radioactive dust and ash away. It's just like one of those things. Clean the gutters, right? Be sure to put Chemlon on in the spring and obviously keep the radioactive dust away. Just shower, go inside, no problem. Buses in New Jersey now have signs warning about radiation poisoning. Quote, September is National Preparedness Month. Do you know what to do in a radiation emergency? No, you don't. It doesn't matter. This is all make-believe. This is all play acting. If you live in a big metro area, there's not anything you're going to do during a nuclear exchange because you're going to be dead, along with most other Americans. The overwhelming majority of Americans will be dead. And those who survive will starve to death because all agriculture will be destroyed, along with billions of people around the planet. So it's time to update your assumptions about the technology here. These are not the bombs that flattened Nagasaki. They are incalculably more powerful. You hit New York, you take out Miami. So a nuclear war means not that we get to take out the Black Sea Fleet, it means the end of the world. And people who work around this stuff understand it, and they're really afraid. But no one else seems to have any idea. Why is that?